Hi, everybody. Woohoo! Hi, everybody. Hopefully some of our students are online. Welcome everybody, I'm Sarah. Craig is currently sitting at the computer. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. The uke I'm currently playing right now is it's actually a reentrant baritone tuning, but we also have a regular high G uke as well, which is the standard tuning too. But we're just excited that we're here and are just very happy to answer questions. Greg and I have been with ArtistWorks teaching for, I think it's now over 2 years, which is really, really exciting. We love our students and we really love just the community that is created through the online school. And I think one of the biggest things that we really enjoy is we actually get to know our students. So with doing the video exchanges with them, it's so cool when we go to uke events and then we actually see them and we can call them by name and it's like seeing old friends. It's really, really awesome. So it's just, we feel incredibly lucky to be able to work with ArtistWorks and to be able to just get to know our students. It's just pretty rad. So, but let me know if there's any questions about this little instrument that you guys might have, or, and I'm sure Craig will be over to answer questions as well. But it's pretty great. We have a really good time playing and performing. I think our next stop is going to be in Pennsylvania. It's going to be the Allegheny Soiree. So I'm sure we're going to see some of you guys there. That is next weekend, I believe, actually. Wow, it's amazing how fast the year starts to go. And then after that is the Vancouver Ukulele Festival. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys up in Vancouver, Canada at the end of this month. And then it's the Reno Ukulele Festival, which should be a ton of fun. It's their 10th anniversary. And it's trying to think. There's going to be lots of people. The lineup is pretty crazy. It's, I think, us and Abe Lagrimas Jr., and we're excited we actually get to involve him in our set, which should be a blast. He's an amazing jazz drummer as well as jazz ukulele player and vibraphonist. And then we'll also have, let's see, I think Daniel Ho will be there, and so will I think Victoria Vox and her husband Jack, and just it's going to be a pretty big event. So we're very, very excited.
Eric has a question about how do you figure out which chord inversion you want to play? The flat 9 or the minor 7 or
So the question being, so Eric, you were asking about, how do I know which inversion to play, whether it's going to be a flat 9 or minor 7 flat 5. It actually really depends on the context of the chord, what chord came before and after it, and the feeling that you're trying to give the tune. So for example, if I was playing a song that was a happy tune, I probably would not use a 7 flat 9 chord because that tends to sound kind of sad and a little bit more tense, where I would just use your standard dominant chord. So I'm going to grab the high G uke for this. So for example, there we go.
Oh, and Eric is also saying, actually, he says, I should have said which position.
Oh, okay.
And actually, Eric, to that end about position, what was buzzing? Position wise, it really depends on the structure of like Sarah said, the context, because sometimes you want to be moving up the fretboard to get a different feel.
Yeah.
Is that your phone?
Nope.
And so a lot of times you look at the movement that's already happening within the progression itself, and then depending on your melody line as well, if you want to mimic or echo, or there's a lot of things that you have to take in consideration. So that's why we always say, really push the different shapes all over the fretboard so that you can manipulate them in a way that fits your theme that you're looking for.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say before that was, if I was, say, playing a simple song like, I don't know, F, a B flat, and a C, that's super simple. But I might decide that I actually want to use that second inversion of C because it'll give a different kind of movement. So, again, it would just be F, B flat, and then move it up 2 frets. And then you could also, while you're playing, you can move up to the next inversion of F if you wanted. B flat. Maybe that didn't sound as good to you. I did a B flat 6 chord and a C6 chord, but maybe that wasn't the sound you were going for. So then maybe it's like, okay, find the next actual normal B flat and go from there. I mentioned, I think in the advanced lesson for Autumn Leaves, I actually go over 2-5-1 progressions, and I talk about a major 2-5-1 versus a minor 2-5-1, and that kind of answers a bunch of the questions referring to, making something a 7 flat 9 versus it just being a regular dominant chord and things like that as well.
Okay, now Sarah had a great question in the chat about what do you do when you get into like a practicing rut.
Yes.
So my answer to that one would be, if you think about the priorities, when you're practicing, what are you actually practicing for? You can either be practicing for performance, so you practice typically that song. But when you're practicing for your own growth, a lot of the exercises that we go over, the drills, that kind of stuff is going to be way more efficient in getting down compared to just playing song after song after song. So even if I get tired of just practicing, a lot of times I'll just sit in front of the TV catching up on like Stranger Things or something, and just doing drills, just doing scales, because every minute that you add doing something on the instrument, you get that much more familiar with it. Your fingers get that much more comfortable. You get a little bit stronger. It all adds up. So whenever you feel like you're just tired of practicing, or you're practicing doing scales, one of our friends mentioned, a great way to think about this is throw all these drills, all the things that you're working on, write them down on an index card each, and you throw them all in a hat. And every day, or every time you have 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you pick something out of the hat, practice it, and then leave it out.
Yeah.
And then after everything's out, put everything back in and start again. But it keeps things a little bit more fresh that way. And in all honesty, for me, I love the drills. I love that repetition in some of those techniques, because you do see that flow over into your song playing really quickly. So to me, that's the kind of stuff I practice a lot more than just the songs. Is a lot more of the even just waiting for something to print in the printer, I'm doing drills or doing scales or stretches or something like that.
And the other thing that I also like to mention too, just about practice in general, and this kind of ties into the question Teco just had, which is what's a good way to use the metronome, which is, especially if I'm working on a couple of different pieces, there's always going to be a transition or something within a song that you're working on that's going to be a little bit difficult. And usually what I say is start your practice session with doing some kind of drills or exercises. That should only take you a couple of minutes, and then you can be done with that. Next, work on transitions that are difficult. And you'll want to really hone in on those transitions. So for example, if I was having issues going from an F chord to a B flat chord, for example, I might set a metronome at a very low level and then just go through and practice that transition over and over again, and then start to gently speed up the metronome until I get to the speed that I'm looking for, that's sort of my goal speed. And it might take a while. Some other transitions can be, super, super tricky, especially if you're doing chord melody, but really taking time in your practice session to break down and play in small bits instead of necessarily running through the whole piece. But the one thing that I do always love to tell folks is end your practice session with something fun. That way, when you think back on your practice, you remember the fun bit. And it'll make you more likely to practice more. But really taking the time and, going back to Teco's question of, use the metronome to help you with some of those tricky transitions. Once you get to a point where you can go through maybe a whole verse of a song, I would use the metronome to make sure that you're actually playing accurately and in time and all of that. But I like using it more to just help me with some of the trickier things. And I'll play 2 measures over and over and over and over again, just to make sure that that muscle memory gets in there. And the great thing about breaking down songs and maybe playing 2 to 4 measures at a time in your practice is that if something happens and you mess up later down the line, you'll be able to pick up where you left off very easily because you've practiced in small sections.
Now, Stephen Gilbert had a great comment about, you should play what you love most to give you incentive. Yes, I agree with that, but at the same time, no one comes out saying, I love drills, I love scales, but it's one of the things that the ukulele itself is very easy to get into. It's very easy to get started playing, but that also means it's very easy to develop a lot of bad technique, a lot of bad habits.
Yes.
And a lot of people will end up, for example, just squeezing the heck out of that left hand. And there's so many better ways to relieve some of that pressure. And so as much as, yes, it is a fun instrument, music should be fun, like everything else, you look at things that people have a passion for, whether it's sports, and how much of sports is really just playing the game. A lot of it is the drills, it is the foundation building. And so as much as it is important to still have fun with it, it is important to make sure that you're not doing things that hurt yourself, or you're not doing things that can develop into bad habits as well. So there is a good balance that needs to happen, I think, going forward with how much you want to really dive into it.
Oh, Todd, I'm so excited. We're going to see you at the soiree. It's been a while. I think last time we saw you was the Midwest Youth Camp. So I'm glad that you're going to be at the soiree. And you know what? There's something really sort of mesmerizing and meditative about practicing scales. So I actually kind of agree with you when you say, maybe I'm weird. But, I always like doing scales. Well, do you want to run through Sunnyside real quick?
Yes. Aids increasing speed as well by tracking. Yeah, a metronome is always playing with metronome is in itself a good skill to have, because that also means when you're playing with others, you can also focus on keeping rhythm with them, even if they're not incredibly stable. But You know, metronomes, my big thing too is utilize those times when you're practicing with a metronome with being able to at least, let's say, you know, kind of hit your foot, tap your foot with the metronome. Because eventually what we'd like to do is have that so ingrained that the foot kind of replaces that metronome, and we kind of can fall back on all that muscle memory, all the minutes and hours that you spend working with the metronome. You can kind of emulate, whether it's, you know, a body kind of bob or a foot using as the metronome replacement. But that kind of stuff is going to be helpful knowing, especially when you're hitting off the beat, or when you start getting to more syncopated rhythms. It's nice having that downbeat there, whether you're playing it or not, but having some kind of physical aspect to help you with that. So we definitely recommend, for a lot of things, trying a metronome out. You know, there's a reason why, you know, with classical music, it's been like, you need to buy a metronome. You need to get that, you know.
And it's always right.
It, yes, you will never win versus. That's very, very true. Let's see.
You want to play a song, honey?
We can. 11 chords.
That's
please.
what. Yeah, let's play a song.
Oh. But was that just 11s? Is what?
I don't know, but I so somebody said 11 chords, please play. So I was thinking that they wanted us to just play a little bit. So let's play a little bit.
Oh, is that what he meant? Okay.
Let's try
11 chords. Okay. Cut my nail there.
Grab your coat, grab your hat, leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet on the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear the bitter and a happy tune is your step? Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade, but I'm not afraid. This road was crossed on over. If I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Grab your coat and grab your hat. Leave your worries on that doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear the bitter pat? And a happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade, but I'm not afraid. This road was crossed right over. If I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side. The sunny side, on that sunny side of the street. So somebody actually mentioned something about our hand placement for picking. So there's there's a couple of different things to think about. The first one for me is that I might pick in a different place on this uke versus this uke because of the tuning. So, and also every uke kind of has its own little sweet spot. Craig has a really great analogy about the tightrope. So you've got a tree here and a tree down here. And depending on where you are on the tightrope, it gets looser. So it's much more taut down here than it is here. So for example, if I was even with strumming, like I'll pick a different place to strum depending. So here you get sort of a more tinny sound, and then it warms up the further down you go. So I tend to pick a lot, and I tend to strum a lot down in this area, and then I might pick a little bit closer. What about you, Craig, for where you're picking and all of that good stuff? For where do you choose to pick and why?
I thought you just explained all the stuff, right?
Well, I thought you would want to show them on your uke because it is tuned differently. You might pick different areas.
Pretty much. If you want something warmer, you'll go toward the middle. If you want something a little sharper, a brighter kind of attack, you'll come.
I think it's a string.
So the difference there. So sometimes if I want something more bluesy, I'll come down here. Compared to something more warm. Big difference just by where you're manipulating, where you're hitting the strings.
Yeah. Everybody's asking about your shirt, sweetheart.
So the shirt is an amazing shirt.
Yes. It's complicated. So he got that at the Midwest Uke Camp last year or 2 years ago, I forget. But I don't know if Ben has them on sale online yet. He keeps saying he's going to. But do you know if Ben's selling them online yet?
I just got to email him. But if you go to the Midwest Uke Camp or the Muddy Uke Day website, there's a contact information there. Ben Hassinger is the one who runs that and also has these shirts for sale. They're amazing.
Yes, so definitely send, if you are interested in the It's Complicated ukulele t-shirt, yeah, you can send Ben Hassinger a note either through Midwest Uke Camp or the Mighty Uke Day website. Just to let you know, Eric. Yeah.
Now, Paul Watkins, was that what you were looking for? 11? We weren't really sure by your question there. Is that the one with Elderly? Yes, is the one in Michigan. Yes. Lansing is where Mighty Uke Day is, and they're doing it in part with elderly instruments as well. So that's definitely those guys there.
Marcus asked a great question. When you want to learn a totally new song, what are the general steps you usually take, and can you recommend how to get started on a challenging piece? I would say one of the first steps is, and actually we did this with our 30-day challenge, right, sweetie? We did we had folks, it's really great to just analyze a song, because even though it may be it may seem like a complicated piece, there's ways that you can actually break things down and make them not seem as daunting. One of the best examples was someone was working on Canon in D, and Craig was able to break that down and say, actually, it's really just this progression over and over and over and over again. And if you just keep that in your head, you'll be able to actually work on the piece and get through it pretty easily, which is pretty great. What other steps do you recommend, sweetheart, when you're working on a complicated piece?
Let's see. Well, most songs you can definitely break up into groups. Like let's say the verse. All the verses would typically be the same. All the choruses. So first is analyzing the breakdown of the song, how it's put together, if there's anything that's repeated. Because once you isolate these repetitive sections, then you can really hone in on just mastering each section at a time. The biggest issue that I had when I first started playing was whenever I wanted to learn a new song, I always practiced it from the start to finish um, whether or not I was ready for all the middle section or the harder section within that. So a lot of things that we try to get people to do is, try to master just one section at a time, because it's much easier to do that and then work on the transitions between those sections compared to kind of stumbling through the entire song over and over, and it's much harder to hone in on that specific thing that's giving you trouble. So part is, really breaking down things into these different repeatable sections. And then another thing we typically say is to mix them up. So, start with the ending, start with the chorus, start with the bridge, so that you're not only practicing the first verse every single time you pick up the uke, and then your ending is not as well rehearsed. So mix them up. And that way it also helps if you do get lost, that you can pick up from the chorus, or you can pick up from the verse a lot easier because you practice them in those kind of chunks. And that way too, you can also manipulate them in a group, like, oh, that chorus went so well and the audience is loving, let's do one more chorus, so you come around, but you're used to being able to, kind of isolate each block. So that's another great way to kind of think about moving forward with that.
Absolutely. And I forgot to say hi to Lisa. You woke up early in Australia to be able to watch this. So it's awesome to see you, Lisa. Thanks so much for joining us. And I don't think we are, Gregory, I don't think we are familiar with that song, Gold Digger. I'm really sorry. Unfortunately. Yeah.
And actually, the part two of Marcus's question to tips on how to, if it's a challenging piece, is to also isolate the techniques that are being used. If it's an instrumental, if it's like a Jake arrangement or Kale Gamiel arrangement, is really realizing what they're doing to get some of those sounds, and then being able to hone in on that technique before moving forward. But if it's one that you're singing with, then again, it's about breaking them into blocks and
yeah. And a lot of it too is, even if the song is out of your range, as far as say there's a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, for example, and you're not you've only just started learning about them, then the biggest thing is akin to what Craig mentioned, which is really spend time honing in on that particular skill, knowing that your goal will be working into that song, and then you'll be surprised if you just spend the time and just practice specific techniques, how easily you'll be able to add them to the songs once you've got that technique down, for sure.
Awesome.
And I'm big, both Craig and I are really big on pushing yourself farther than you think you can, because honestly, that's the only way to learn, is to really challenge yourself. Yes, you may not be able to play it at an open mic or in front of a crowd, but you're doing music for you. So even if it seems like too much, taking the time to really break things down measure by measure, even if you have to do it that way, it's really great to just push yourself, because then that's the only way you're going to get better. Oh, and thank you. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the advice.
Any other random questions that we could help answer?
Yes. Absolutely. Some people ask actually a lot about, that sort of reentrant tuning that the uke's got. And we both really enjoy it. It's one of those things where that's part of the quintessential sound of this instrument. You can make it have a low G if you want, so it's linear tuning, or for this instrument it would be a low D. But one of the things, there's several things that I think make the uke so awesome, but one of them is that tuning, because there's so many cool tricks that you can do, putting melody notes on this string, and you can still hold fairly complex chords, and you can kind of go through that way, either by just plucking it or even just strumming backwards, being able to get some of those melody notes in a song that's kind of fast, which is pretty great. And also that sort of Hawaiian sound is also it's very prevalent, having this high string, being able to do the different, oh, I'm out of tune. Sorry, guys.
I wonder why things...
Are we out of sync? then Todd, playing with your nails. So honestly, both Craig and I's nails are not very long. And one thing that I recommend doing is plug your instrument in and practice with your nails and see if you still like that sound. I've discovered over the years, I used to have really, really long nails at one point when I would play. Part of it was just laziness. I didn't feel like cutting them, but I learned that especially plugged in, the nail sound can be really harsh. And it's best to try to do a lot of your picking with the pads of your fingers. And then if you have a little bit of nail, that nail will just gently clip it to help give you just that little bit of extra volume. The one nail that both Craig and I do keep kind of longish is the thumb, because there's different double picking and things that you do with this guy where it almost acts like a plectrum. That and those techniques, we do have a longer thumbnail for sure.
In response to Gregory, there's definitely a lot of things that, you know, Sarah will be practicing, and I'll like chime in with like a totally different song that uses the same progression. But
yes.
you will hear, you know, the more you play, the more you'll hear what those different progressions sound like, because you can only do so much, you know, with the finite kind of amount of chords that we can throw into a song without being too much. There's your typical progressions that you'll see over and over and over and over again. So you know, that also goes to show you though how much you can manipulate each progression to make it sound a little different, but the core progression for a lot of songs are going to be the exact same. So sometimes you'll be just you can make a medley of like thousands of songs using that same kind of progression.
And somebody asked about the thumb pick. We have several friends that use thumb picks. We do not, just because we don't like the sound, that plastic sound against the string. Just it's not something that we like. But like our good friend Brian Tolentino uses a thumb pick, and he sounds fabulous.
Herb the Junior.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And Jake used to play with the thumb pick. I used to play with the thumb pick too. The one thing I could actually play fastest with the thumb pick, going down and up. But it really was controlling that tone, which is much harder to do when you're plugged in.
Yeah.
Acoustically is not as bad, but when you're plugged in with that thumb pick, it's the tone difference between your actual nail and that plastic is such a big difference, and that was the big reason why I kind of stopped using that.
Oh, and Sarah had a question. Can you recommend how best to practice hitting chord tones over chord progressions, starting with patterns? Honestly, one of I think the easiest ways is hold the chord and do a picking pattern, because you're already holding your chord tones. And then I would also do that if you're practicing with someone else, have them stay in one position. And if you actually practice doing that and you move up and play those same chord tones in another position, it sounds really, really cool. And it is a very good way of practicing that and getting your ear used to what those tones sound like. Then you can start after you get your ear kind of trained into the tone, then I would recommend going through and actually picking out the individual notes. But starting with just with the chord actually being held, I think is the easy sort of first step to getting used to.
Oh, so you're just talking about the to get each note kind of in tune, in clarity. Is that what you're referring to?
I'm just saying that and you don't have to play them in any kind of order. If you were holding what would you be doing if I hold an F chord for me? So what I could do is to just get the tones. I think that's what you're asking. Just the general practice of being able to play those chord tones. And if you hold the actual chord shape, you already have the tones under your fingers, and you can play in and out of order if you would like to be able to kind of get your ear used to that. Then eventually you can go into just doing the single notes without actually holding the chord itself.
But Sarah, definitely let us know if that's what you're actually asking about, if it's clarity over those notes, or if it's something else that you're kind of talking about. We want to make sure we answer your question.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is also pick pick a rhythm in which you want to hit those notes. It can be as simple as just playing quarter notes or eighth notes with them as well.
Oh, Gregory, good to hear from you. And Berlin, oh yeah, Berlin. Berlin was so much fun. Berlin was awesome. We definitely want to get back.
No.
Okay.
But there is a high probability that we will be back in Berlin in 2019, but there are no details as of yet. But it is a high probability that
Berlin was a lot of fun. We loved Berlin.
Yes, and hopefully you're going to be at the Berlin Festival this year, because we know who. I don't think we're allowed to say yet, but we know who the headliner is, and we're super excited because he's a good friend of ours, and you're gonna love it. So thank you so much for joining us all the way from Berlin as well. That's super exciting. Woo!
Right. Now, is the sync back, or is there still a weird audio?
Let us know. Oh, we live in San Diego, California. And yeah, it's a pretty awesome home base. I know every time we fly home, I'm always just like, yay, there's our beautiful skyline. But I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, and moved out to California in 2004. And then Craig, what about you? Your background?
Born and raised in Hawaii, and then went up to University of Oregon for college. Stayed up there and met Sarah, and then moved down here to San Diego.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering.
Craig is wanting to fix the sync issue. I'm sorry, guys.
Let's see. Is Marcus, are you still out there? Let's see. So what I might do is rejoin this guy, because nothing changed on our end. Huh. Yeah, this is the way we're doing this with the ArtistWorks is a little different than we do our live stuff on our own channel. So there is an extra kind of step that we're having to take. So I think that's what might be causing that audio
the lag,
but I'm not sure if I can just rejoin this guy here.
So Sarah, the doing arpeggios up the neck, so what I had said was the first way of starting that is literally holding your chord, and you can one good thing about doing that is that I would recommend starting if you're holding a chord and saying, okay, do one, and actually count out what it is that you're doing. So it'd be 1, 3, 5, that kind of thing. That way you know what numbers they are, because you're already holding the arpeggio. You're just, instead of playing it as a chord, you're just going to play the single notes. That would be step one. And then eventually you can actually start linking them and move them up the neck as well. But that's where I would start. And then the great thing about that is that then in your chord inversions, you'll know where all of those numbers live, so that when you go to actually move your chords, you'll know the names of the chords and where the 1, 3, and the 5 are.
All right, I'm gonna try and rejoin just to see if this
we're gonna
helps.
go away for 1 second, but we'll be right back.
We'll be right back, guys.
All right. Okay, it's pretty cool and exciting. I think we're back. Yay! Okay.
Hopefully that helps. Let's see.
You're welcome, Sarah. I'm glad I answered your question. And just and if you ever have any other questions about us, let us know. Oh, good, it's fixed. Yay!
Oh no, Gregory. We'll make sure to.
Good. I'm glad we're back in sync. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Are there any other big questions that you've been dying to ask? Well, here, I have a question for you guys then. What goal would you have yourself for 1 year from now? In 1 year, what do you want to be able to do?
Mhm. A good uke under $500. It depends on what it is that you are looking for, but one of the top brands that I recommend is actually the Islander ukulele by Kanilea. They are really the best bang for your buck, and they use the same patterns to make their Islander series that they do to make their expensive line. So the instrument will feel really great. It's usually set up really nicely. And they sound great, and they aren't super expensive. I think you can get one for $150 if you don't want like fancy looking stuff. If you want a pickup in it, it'll be a little bit more, of course, because of the pickup.
Oh, hi, Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
Another big thing about buying an ukulele. I tend to tell my students to ignore anything between $500 to $900, because at that price point, you're typically only paying
For fancy
for like the
stuff.
bells and whistles, like the really curly koa, or you're not really getting better craftsmanship. Because there's a lot of great ukes around the 350 to 500 range that you can still get some solid wood ukes. But until you, and then there's a gap between like I said, 5 to 800, but typically anything above over 1,000 will get you the more handmade instruments, and the ones that the craftsmanship is really what you're paying for, and those will last like generations, and those will last like a really long time without having to worry um, about some of the smaller issues with the other ones. So it depends what you're after. If you're looking for a good band sound, the biggest thing you actually want to look toward is making sure it's a uke that sounds good with an active pickup compared to a passive. A passive, after I played in a band in Eugene for like forever, and I had like one of the greatest funk bands as my backing band. So we had this ukulele-led like kind of rock funk group for a while. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Electric guitar, bass drums. We had sometimes a horn section that came up. But with the uke, with the passive pickup, I would get so much feedback because there's so much sound that's making all the air in my instrument vibrate, that it was just a lost cause compared to having like the undersaddle active pickup where it picks up straight from the strings pretty much itself. That sounded just better in that kind of a scene. But if it's more of an acoustic sounding band, then that's one thing. But again, I always recommend getting active pickups.
Yeah.
It makes things a lot easier, and it's just a stronger signal to start with. But yeah, ukes under 500, you'll find a lot of great options. Koaloha has some entry level
really nice.
stuff
The Opiho
that has like these amazing Hawaiian bright sound. We don't typically play a lot of that bright stuff, but if that's what you're going for, that's another great option.
Yeah.
Ohana has some great entry level ukes as well. I mean, there's so many great options. It kind of depends on the style that you want, and what what sound you're after. That's the main thing to kind of figure out first.
Right. And Lisa, I'm glad to hear that you're saving up for a Kanilea. They are really wonderful instruments, and it'll last you forever. You'll never need another one, though most people who play the ukulele tend to have UAS, or ukulele acquisition syndrome. So you'll probably have another one, but you won't need to have another one if you get one. It'll last you forever, which is awesome. And then what else?
And Techo, one thing I recommend doing about being able to improv more and just jam is literally play through a song yourself. Something that you typically sing and strum with, but just focus on the strumming. So play through, like, let's say Brown Eyed Girl, and then go through the whole song, and then come back into it and just work on those improv techniques. Whether you're basing things off of a scale or you're certain patterns, but using recordings as a practice tool is so incredible.
Yes,
Again, I used to
yourself.
have the big red cassette tape recorder that I used to record myself playing for like 4 minutes, and then stop it, rewind it, and then just try to practice picking over it and create the melodies that I heard in my head. And one of the things that we always push to is try to hum along to a melody that you want to emulate with the uke, because rather than just kind of stabbing at different notes randomly, think about what you're trying to do first, and then try to emulate that with your uke, matching either your humming or your whistling or your singing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if there's a song in the curriculum that you really like, and you look in the lesson resources and you see there's a backing track, start noodling with that backing track. It's a great way of testing out ideas and things. You can also do a VE where you have us in the background playing, and then you can play over it, and you can ask us about, how would you approach this? This is what I'm thinking about when I'm going through this. I think I mentioned in one of the VEs, I think it was to Diane or Boy, where I said, if you record yourself singing with one of those playbacks, and then you can listen back to it, and if you hear an idea that you think is really awesome, then you can find it on your uke too, which is pretty rad.
Yeah, Looper is another great option as well if you're already practicing with an amp. I'm so sorry about the sync issue. Again, we don't typically have this when we're doing with our own channel, but we are doing an extra step to be on the ArtistWorks channel for this current live stream. But I'll make sure that this doesn't happen again. We'll kind of test this again before the next one. But yeah, loopers are great if you already are invested in an amp and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But if you don't have that voice memo on an iPhone or whatever it is on an Android, those work great.
String emphasis, please. String-wise, it is funny that we're willing to spend hundreds of dollars on a uke, and then we leave the strings on for like 2 years, and it just sounds horrible. Strings.
So strings are very, very person specific, because we all have different touches that we like.
Well, the things that you want to look for is, one is tension. There's high tension strings, there's low tension. There's ones that are made out of different materials, ones that will feel a little sharper on the fingers. These are our ground nylon string sets that we did with a custom set with GHS Strings. So they're a little bit fatter, but a little bit softer on your fingers, so it's a more mellow tone compared to that over-the-top bright tone. But some people, again, want the more bright tone, so they'll do something like Ukuleles to get that kind of bright
or worth
sound, or worths. But there's so many different types, so many different. What my biggest thing is, hopefully you have a store, or Hawaii Music Supply actually has a lot of different sound samples using different strings.
But
nothing can beat picking up a uke with different strings and just playing through it. And I think everyone kind of goes through that journey,
the string quest,
where you just try everything you could possibly try, because you never know what might just feel good on your fingers, and it's just something you need to try.
And also with that sort of string quest thing, when I sort of went on mine, I just bought every single brand I could. And the great thing about the uke is that I think the most expensive strings I bought were $20. Okay, so it's not like it's super expensive to buy a whole bunch of strings for this instrument, unlike something like a cello.
$20 is expensive.
I know, that was worth, because you get 2 sets.
Oh, so technically you're getting 2. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, in comparison to a cello or bass, the strings are relatively cheap. And I would say if you are looking...
Yeah, but you're supposed to also string them more constantly than a cello or bass too, though.
It's true.
Yeah.
But it is just one of those things where Take the time, if you feel you are ready, take the time and just go through and restring, you know, have them on for a month, restring it. And a lot of times you'll get to a point where you'll put a set on and you'll know right away when you put your hands down and go, ooh, I hate these, and you just take them off and put on another set. You also get really good at restringing your instrument, which is a great skill to have. But yeah, strings, people, even though we have our own custom sets, we tell people, you know, go on your own quest. Just because I play a certain string doesn't mean that you are going to like it, because everybody, again, has different touches and tensions that they like. Yeah, let's see. We're just double checking, looking through all of the awesome comments that you guys have been writing. Thank you guys so much for being so active as well. We really, really love being asked questions. We're very passionate about our instrument, and we just are really, really glad to have you guys here. Yes, our strings are GHS strings. They are custom. Let me go get package. I'll be right back.
Yeah, it is funny how much different strings can completely change an instrument. Yeah, and like Stephen mentioned too, your taste in strings do change over time, because as you get better as a player, your ear starts to change too, and you just become more articulate of, you know, the sound that you're liking or the sound that you're looking for. You can put better, you can put into better words of what you really are looking for, which will lead you to different strings. And so it is this kind of ongoing struggle.
Yeah. All right, so we actually have 3 different string sets. The set that most people will get is this set. Let's see. Yeah, hopefully that's focusing. But it's the high G set. This is the new packaging. Some stores still have the older packaging, but it's the blue set. Is the high G set. It's ground nylon. That's what's on this instrument here. The next most popular set is our low G set. It is a fluorocarbon low G, and the rest are titanium infused nylon. And then the last set is the one that you actually are on the uke that I'm playing, and that is the Barry tenor set, and that is reentrant baritone tuning for a tenor scale. So these cannot go on a baritone uke; they must go on a tenor uke. But so that's DGBE with a high D, and it's beautiful. If you have a spare tenor lying around, we highly recommend picking up one of these sets, just because it'll make that instrument seem new again, and it just adds a different sound to your collection, which is pretty great. Yeah, with the hibiscus, yes. And the old packaging has, I think it's white with the, and it's the same packaging, but just the name is different. And we asked them to color code it because we found at festivals and stuff, some people might grab the wrong set and they'd have to come back and trade it because it wasn't as obvious. Yeah.
For Banjo-lele Strings, you will want to find out one of our current, actually on the site, our current featured artist that we have is Aaron Kime with the Quiet American. He actually is a luthier as well. He makes banjo-leles.
Yes.
He would be the guy to ask about that. He has the most knowledge in that side of it for any of the banjo stuff and banjo-lele stuff. He is going to be an incredible resource. So definitely give him a shout or an email when you get a chance. Yeah.
And there are some folks there are some string companies that specifically have what they call their banjo uke string sets, but definitely talking to somebody, especially a builder like Aaron, about what strings to use for a banjo-lele is always best, I think. Yay! Awesome, mainland gal! Yay! That's fabulous.
And we haven't seen a VE from you in a while, so I think you're...
Oh, and by the way, Sarah, if you wanted to do a VE on the arpeggio thing,
oh yeah, totally,
go ahead and do that, because then I can actually answer you and be much more specifics if I know, which exact ones that you're working on and all of that good stuff. Because there is an exercise that I used to do that I would recommend, which is you go around it's a Jamie Aebersold exercise with dominant chords where you basically go around the circle of fifths, but you go backwards and fourths, going through all of the different arpeggios. It's pretty neat. And I can give you all that information if you submit a VE on it as well. So yay! Are we gonna, hopefully we'll see you at Reno again. That one's coming up.
And Gregory, we have a little featured video with him on our
it's our welcome video
on ArtistWorks, but he is currently, I think we're the only uke teachers on ArtistWorks at the moment.
And he, if you don't see the welcome video on the ArtistWorks site, you can also find him. The Quiet American is his band name, but you could also look up Beansprout Musical Instruments. That is his company.
Your 7th fret is missing a dot.
Oh no!
Where can I get spares? It depends on the instrument. You can always get a white Sharpie. But
I'd go to the Southern Uke store with whatever, since you're in the UK, I'd go to the Southern Uke store with whatever uke thing that you need. If it is a side dot, then yeah, I would totally do what Craig is saying and be like, dot, and just stick one on there. But if it's a front thing, that's different.
Yeah, and that's not really a spare thing. I mean, unless it fell out, because I mean, you'd have to get a luthier to dig into the fretboard a bit and get that set.
Yeah, and I've seen actually some companies sell they're stickers that look like mother of pearl that are meant for you to stick on the side. So you might actually be able to just get some, if it's a side dot issue, I would get some stickers. I wouldn't necessarily put a sticker on the front because your finger will catch it, potentially. So, but the side dots, you could totally just put little stickers on it, and that won't hurt your instrument either. Yes, Gregory, it's our welcome video. It's the first thing you see. And you'll see Aaron in his hat because it was quite cold in his workspace. And he does a really cool intro to claw hammer, which is really, really awesome. I love he's such a clear teacher as well. Oh, I'm so glad that you have Aaron and Nicole CD. They're very good friends of ours, and they're just really wonderful people. And of course, I absolutely adore their son, Henry. It's the one being...
Nice. Now, but for those of you who are enrolled in our school and haven't sent a VE yet, remember, you don't have to show your face if you don't want to, but it is such an amazing tool to have access to. As some of the students who recently submitted their first one, having that kind of feedback just to kind of check in is always so incredible. So please, even if it's just your uke in your hands, that's all we need.
Yep. And the other thing too is if you look at all of the awesome things that people have been learning, and the thing I love about the VEs as well is not only do you get the personal feedback, you also can see your own growth. If you've been with the school for a year and you did a VE at the very start, and then you do a VE a year later, you've done VEs throughout. If you go back and watch that first one, you'll be surprised at how much growth you've made. And the fact that it's basically a private session with us is pretty awesome. And we also tend to, Craig and I do tend to give like extra homework that isn't in the actual lesson in those VEs as well. So watching other people's VEs is great because you'll go, oh, neat. Oh, I can add that walk down here. Oh, how cool is that? And again, as I said at the beginning of this, I also love the VEs because when we attend festivals and things, we already know you and we can see you and go, hey, like Eric was one that I surprised in the UK because I looked and I was like, oh, there he is. Hey, Eric. And I recognized him, and it feels like you're seeing good friends. So it's pretty rad. We really enjoy it. But as Craig said, we don't have to see your face, even if it's just your uke and both your hands. We are totally okay with that as well. So hopefully this will encourage you to submit a VE if you haven't already. I know that's on our to-do list today, to get back to those. Yep. Are there any other questions? Oh, no, you have to miss Reno. Oh, but you have an awesome doggy. Great.
Aww.
That's Sarah. I'm just reading her comment. Oh, good. I love that you're going to do a VE, Sarah. That's great. And I'll be able to answer you for sure in that. That's awesome. Yeah. That's one thing that we really also love about our ArtistWorks school is that Stephen just mentioned that he loves the enthusiasm that we radiate. It's when you play such an awesome instrument, it's hard not to be happy and want to share it with everybody. Craig and I actually joke that playing the uke is kind of like being in a cult. And that like we're like, it'll change your life, it's the best thing ever, because it is. And you get to really enjoy just creating music, even if you've never had the chance to do it before, which is pretty rad.
It takes way more effort to make this instrument sound sad than happy. So typically when you're playing this, you will be in a happier mood.
Yes. And for us, we have all at some point in our lives had some kind of negative Nancy say that we can't do something. And it's one of those things where to us with ArtistWorks, that will never happen, because it is very important that for us, we want to keep it an encouraging and helpful community, because we are all in it together and we want to see everyone succeed, because we know you can. It just takes work, and we love seeing when people progress, and it really it touches us in a way that's very hard to describe in words. I love, God, just seeing the students' growth and just really getting to see folks truly shine is something that we're both Craig and I are very passionate about. And if you watch how we answer VEs, even if you make a mistake on something, we'll be able to look at that and say, here's how you can, I notice you're making this small mistake. Here's the ways we think that you can really help ensure it doesn't happen again. Here's some steps you can take, etc. It's something that's just really important to us. So I'm glad that you can sense it from us here. And also those of you that are enrolled in the school have said, they love the sense of community. And we're very, very glad to hear that. There's some other folks saying stuff. It's true, Gregory. It's hard when you play this not to smile. Still working on Guava Jam. Yes, Melanie, that's awesome. Yeah, oh yes, and we're very excited. UK friends, we're coming back. We didn't think we'd be back in 2019 or 2018, but we are. So in July, we're going over to celebrate my birthday. I'm pretty excited. But we're going to be over there. There is, I think July 7th, we're at Southern Uke Store. July 10th, tentatively London. July 11th, St. Albans. July 12th, Leamington Spa with Eric. Hi, Eric. And then the 13th through 15th we are doing a weekend retreat, ukulele retreat in the Forest of Dean, one of the most beautiful places. And that I think is limited to 40 people. So it's probably going to sell out. So I would highly recommend contacting the guy that runs at Matt Stead as soon as possible. And then I think the 16th is Cardiff, where we'll see Melanie. And then the 21st is Biddulph. And I know there's some more that we're going to fill in, but that's it. So we'll be in the UK July 7th through 21st this summer. Yeah.
And Greg, I don't think we have any Neil Young uke tunes coming up, But if you do a VE on one, we can
True, we
definitely
can help you
with
with it.
that. So, or if there's something
Mhm.
technique-wise or pattern-wise that we can really pull from a song, we can use those techniques to kind of see how you would use it in such a song. But right
Mhm.
now, there's no specific Neil Young tunes yet.
But I am a big Neil Young fan, so I'm sure that if you do a VE on it, that we can definitely hook you up. I have two of his albums on vinyl, actually, that I listen to regularly. They're pretty great. And Todd, yes, one negative is that people expect you to sing and play when you have the ukulele, but that's why you just bust out a chord melody and show them.
Oh, and totally, a lot of our students actually only use either iPad or iPhone for the school as well, so that definitely can work. A Neil Young challenge.
Yes, we
That
could do
would
a
be
Neil Young
fun.
challenge.
That would be a lot
I'm
of
a little
fun.
nervous though about people because I love Neil Young, but I know when he's performing, he's very stiff. So I don't know if we want.
Sarah, for a songwriting lesson, I'm actually thinking of one of our
yeah.
next live workshops. We'll actually do
Dive into
some
songwriting.
songwriting. Maybe we'll write a song with everyone that's part of that live stream as well. I think that would
Oh,
be a lot of fun.
dude, that would be awesome because Craig and I actually have been testing out, and it's been really great. We've been doing live streams through our YouTube channel for just our ArtistWorks students only. It's part of the cool thing about being a part of the school is we'll spend, usually we do it on a Saturday. And we've picked different topics, and the songwriting topic would probably be a really awesome one. And I like the idea of all of us sort of writing a song together. And then the great thing too is that you get to, as an ArtistWorks student, you'll get to go back and watch it again, whereas it's not made public, so the general public does not get to see the cool stuff that we go over in those chats.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And again, one kind of goal that I want for those of you who aren't even enrolled in our school but just joining us for this chat is to really pick out some long-term goals and some short-term goals. Part of the challenge is figuring out how to make your practice time the most efficient and make it fun and make it engaging and make it inspiring. Yeah. So, having a long-term goal, like for example, I want to learn song A, and then analyzing it and figuring out what things you can do to make that a success. So whether it's mastering certain techniques that make song A possible, or memorizing the lyrics. So maybe 1 week, that's all you do. Instead of playing, you actually memorize the lyrics, or you memorize the start of each verse with certain chords. Instead of trying to do everything at once, just try to match up, when the downbeat is on certain lyrics, or when the pattern starts with that strum pattern. But there's a ton of tiny little things you can set yourself to do and accomplish in order to get those long-term goals. So a lot of times it is daunting. It is very intimidating when you think, oh, I want to do this and this and this and this and this. Pick one thing, break it down, and really focus on those tiny building blocks to make that bigger goal possible, rather than just kind of squirrel and just chasing off after way too many things. Be focused in that sense. And again, you can still reward yourself with some playing through some of the more fun tunes that you enjoy, but you have to be able to balance that. And it's always good to for repertoire, like to keep things in your repertoire, you do have to keep playing them. So as I said earlier in this session, end with some of that stuff, end with the fun stuff. That way you can keep it up here. And also, hi, Uke Maniac, you're joining us all the way from Brazil. Awesome. Though you said you're at work. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm so glad you were able to join us. Yes. Oh, Eric, open mics, as I mentioned before, I used to do almost an open mic every single night of the week in Eugene. And those weren't uke people. So I even more so is, every time I come up, you're like, what the heck is this? But open mics were one of the biggest things for me, practicing in front of a live audience, practicing and realizing that I'm going to muck it up. You know, you'd be
Yeah.
hard pressed to do something exactly perfect. You know, there's no such thing. You can
Mhm.
you do enough that you're very happy. You can be very happy with your performance, but I would never say perfect. Is That's just impossible, and it takes away from, you know, what we're trying to do with music, which is just this organic thing. You don't necessarily want to see the exact same performance when you see a player. You know, you want to refer to, oh, you should have been at that one concert that one time. There was just that magical moment. You know, that energy you
Yeah.
can't recreate, or it was just a different feel. You know, you want these unique experiences, and what open mic does is really pushes you in that sense of trying to achieve that, while at the same time scaring you to no end, because it is this completely random crowd that doesn't necessarily care if you succeed or not. Where a lot of youth people, a lot of festivals, everyone is rooting for you. You know,
Yes.
at these open mics, it can be very, very hard in that sense, where some people are just there because they wanted their chance to play, or, you know, they've been dragged out by their friends who are playing.
Yes.
So like, it takes a lot to kind of impress them, but it gives you a chance to realize how you really do,
Mhm.
even before you play your first note, how you talk to the audience, how you get them
Yeah.
engaged already. There's so many little things you can work on performance wise than just your performance of the piece.
So there were two questions that came up. One is, how do you overcome your nerves to play in front of a live audience? All right. So this one, there's a couple of things. You are going to be nervous no matter what. And the only way to get over it is to do it over and over and over again. That's how I've gotten mostly over my horrific fear of flying, because we fly a ton. So, but you just kind of you have to grit your teeth and bear it and do it. The more you do it, the easier time you're going to have of being able to control those nerves. A couple of tricks that I do to help control those nerves is I close my eyes frequently when I play. A lot of it is so that I can concentrate on what I'm doing, but it's also to block the audience out. I don't. I like making eye contact and stuff when I'm singing, but if I am soloing, I tend to visualize that I'm on my couch practicing. It just makes me feel safer. I'll also spend more time looking at other bandmates. If you do not have that luxury and you're on stage solo, you can also just, I tend to, if I'm going to do something solo on my own, I'll close my eyes for a second before I start the piece. I will hum the piece to myself, tap my foot. I will take a big, deep breath and say to myself, you're going to be great, and move forward. If my hands or my legs are shaking, I try to take as many breaths as I can to calm those nerves before I begin. There was one particular gig where my legs shook the entire time. And the worst thing you can do when you're on stage is, while you're playing, do not think, oh, this is the part where I always screw up, because you will screw up. And you don't want that. You want to just go into it and have more confidence. Try to give yourself as much confidence as possible. A lot of times when I mess up, one of the biggest things I do is I smile hugely to try to remind myself that even though I messed up, I'm having a great time. So hopefully those small things can be helpful, but it really is just going through those motions over and over again. As much as it sucks at first, because you're just like, oh, you will be okay. And that's the other thing to remember. It's not a life or death situation. You'll be fine. Oh, a bunch of stuff just popped up.
Eric, we'll definitely see you soon, and we'll talk about more about your argument for carefully rehearsed spontaneity.
Yes.
Cool.
Ooh, Todd, I'd love to do flying lessons. For me, what actually helped me get over my fear of flying was all of the awesome YouTube videos out there of pilots who explain what all the noises are. That was super helpful for me, because now when I'm on a plane and I hear I'm like, oh, that's the wheels. Oh, that's the wing flap. Oh, that's the this. And that's super. super awesome. You're welcome for the advice, Stephen. Hopefully it is helpful for you. Yeah. Are there any other questions for us? Oh my God, you've only flown once, Lisa? Well, you know, a good reason to fly would be possibly going to an ukulele event. I'm just saying. You never know. The Sunshine Coast Ukulele Festival is a blast, by the way. So I highly recommend going to that one. So. Have a great afternoon, Gregory.
Great question, Drew.
Yeah.
I had a lot of young students start around 6, but we typically didn't play a lot of songs. You know, it's just like, you know, I'm thinking about when I grew up too, and playing cello and piano. We didn't just jump in and do a lot of songs. A lot of it was this kind of technique building exercises, finger strengthening. And so I talked to the parents, and for 6 months we did, you know, a few small songs, but mainly drills, just to get that grip correct and not over squeezing. And once we hit that 6-month mark, we applied it to songs, and all of a sudden, you know, they can just fly across it. But part of the discipline is not to jump straight into songs, because again, there's no foundation building when you're playing songs. You're not taking a look at, you know, all these other things that are going on. So typically, you know, 5 and 6, the emphasis is more on foundation building and strengthening with the fingers, and then pushing forward from there. I think it gives them a higher success of being able to play happily with the instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think 5 or 6 is a good starting age. I know that's when I started violin, and that's a little for that that's like the 10 little 8th size thing, and a uke is a really good size for kids' hands as well, even at that age.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for joining us. We might just end with a song, maybe we'll do something like
You want to do CNC?
Let's see. What kind of song do you guys want to hear?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I forgot the Sunshine Coast is so close.
Yes, that festival is just a blast. It's a camping one, and it's last year there were 1,000 people. It was so cool, and it was us and Kalega Miao. And who else was there? There were a bunch of great acts there last year. And it's just that it really has like a sense of community, and is because you're all camping together and stuff, and a lot of caravans. So many caravans, and people dress them up for the festival. And the people that run it we call them our Aussie mom and dad. Lynn and Jeff are just some of the sweetest people. Yeah.
You can do some Autumn Leaves if you want,
or East.
We can do East.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We've had a wonderful time just chatting with you guys. Thank you guys so much. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear, near to the sun in the day, near to that moon at night. We'll live a lovely way, dear, living on love in the paradise, just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars we'll find a harmony, alive to a lovely tune. Oh, east of the sun, west of the moon, dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in a day, near to the moon at night. We'll live a lovely, such a lovely way, dear. Living our love in the pale moonlight. Just you and I, forever and a day. Love will not die, we'll keep it that way. Up among the stars we'll find a harmony, alive to a lovely tune. Oh, east of the sun, west of the moon, dear. East of the sun and west of the moon. Yeah, there we go.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Find more information at ArtistWorks.com. We love having our students there. And again, we'll be doing more live streams in the near future as well. So aloha.
Yay! Our students are the best.